working with slabs. Now, some of you may have actually done a little bit of working with slabs in some of your other projects. So there's a few people who will know a little bit more about the tools that you'll need. So the first thing you'll need to get is a clay board. So this is just a wooden board. This is like chipboard stuff, and it's got canvas that's been nailed down. Okay, so that what will happen is when we roll our clay out, this is not going to really stick to it, and it'll come right up. Okay, so that's what we always have a clay board. Never roll it on the table because you'll never get it off. So always use a clay board. Okay, we've got our rolling pin. When you get your rolling pin and before you start using it, you can take a tool, like I used my rib here, and you can just kind of scrape off around the sides just to make sure there aren't any really big bumps on there. Because if you roll it out and there's a big bump, you're going to have a dent in your slab, and you don't want that. Okay. You'll also need the sideboards, and so the sideboards go on either side of your clay piece you're going to flatten and make a slab out of. And so that it will, as you roll, it will only go that thick. So it'll get exactly that thick. We want to make sure that we have all the sides of our slabs as we construct. We're going to be making boxes. You want them to be all the same thickness so they're nice and strong. If they get too thin, then it's going to be very, very brittle at the end. We don't want that. Okay. So I've also got my knife tool, and we want some nice cuts. So what I did with my knife tool is I just took my rib and I scraped it off so it's nice and clean. You can also just wash them off in the sink. If you do that, make sure to dry it off really well. But doing this means I don't have to dry it. Okay, so I'm going to flatten out my thing. So the first thing I did is I took my clay body and I just kind of squished it a little bit. Now this clay is going to be much more firm, but it should work just as well as the really, really soft stuff. So I'm hoping it'll actually work a little bit better because we want a little bit more firm clay because we're actually going to have to wait and have these things dry a little bit. So I'm just going to sort of roll this out a little bit. Okay, stretched pretty nicely, and then I can do a couple things. I want to free it, and I'm going to turn it and set it down. I could also do this and turn it this way. However it works, so we're now going to be stretching the clay this way and not just left and right. Okay, so I've freed it, always pull it up, and I'm going to roll it out a little bit more. Okay, and then I'm going to free it up again, and this time I'm just going to turn the whole clay board. These go on the sides. Roll again. Every time I do it, free it up. I'm going to go ahead and turn it. I'm going to turn it this way. So trying to get kind of roughly the same width on each side. Now it depends on what kind of slab you want. Sometimes you want a kind of a long, thin slab, so you might want to, just roll it out kind of this way and not so much the other ways. All right, so now you'll notice we've got a pretty nice smooth surface here. Okay, but on this side, it's not exactly smooth. Okay, so I can fix that. So got some creases in there. It may not bother you. When we make our boxes, this will be on the inside, but if you are really particular about it, you can take your rib. I like the metal ones. I can just go around and I can just kind of erase all of it's going to have the bumps of the canvas, erase all the bumps, and I can kind of erase all of those creases as well. Okay. But you definitely want to have it nice and smooth on one side. So that's nice and smooth. All right. Now the cutting. So before you just jump in and start cutting, we want to make sure that we're not just straight up measuring on the clay. We need to make a template first. So if you're making a box that is a cube, you only need one template. You just need whatever size that square is, because of course a cube is made up of six sides, and each side is a perfect square. So it just needs to be the same width and the same length for each and every one. And again, I said in my directions, it can either be between 4 to 5 inches, so it could be 4.5, it could be 4, it could be 5 inches, somewhere around in there. So I need to make sure that I have my template ready first. So once I've got my template ready, and so I'm going to go ahead and pretend that I have measured. So I'm going to eyeball this. I'll make it a rectangle. So I've got my square, okay? Now, just like if you have ever made like sugar cookies and rolled out the dough, you don't want to put whatever you're going to be cutting out directly in the middle, because then I'm wasting a lot of the stuff on the outside. So I got to try to find a spot where I can see if I can get two of these, if possible. And it looks like I can get two right here. So I'm going to go ahead and do one. And then I'll do another one right there. Okay, I'll just cut it. Now before I've cut it, make sure that you have freed it up so it's nice and free. Otherwise what will happen is this square that I'm cutting out will be stuck to the clay board, and as I pull it off, if I have to pull it off a little bit more, what's going to happen is it's going to stretch the clay. Now if I get a little bit off in my cuts, that's okay. All right, so I've got extra clay, and that's freed, so I've got my nice little slab, and I can kind of clean those off a little bit. So I'm going to set that aside, and I normally would set it on my styrofoam tray. And so let's see, do I have enough room for it? Oh, look at that. I can line that up right there, and I don't even have to cut that. Now as you cut this clay here is it's a little stiffer, and so if we bent it a lot, then it would start cracking a little bit, but we're not going to bend it, so we don't need to worry about that. This would be really awful for coils, because you can see how it's starting to crack, but it's great for slabs because I get a nice clean cut. And I'll just cut this off here and off here. All right, I got my second one, and I can just kind of clean that off a little bit. If I have little bits that are left, I can just kind of leave that off there. It's a nice slab. And so I've got my two for my sides of my box. Now it's really important that you have all 6 of your sides cut out first and then assemble. If you try to assemble some at a time, like, okay, I'm going to try to assemble these two to make my box, what's going to happen, this is going to be drying, this is going to be weak, someone is going to bonk it, it's going to be maybe like this, someone's going to hit it with theirs, and it's going to tear apart, and you're going to have to start all over again. So make sure that you have all 6 of these created before you start putting these things together.